I told you guys earlier today, this is going to be a long, drama-filled week. There's no way the Indiana Fever could do any PR to possibly combat the amount of segments that is about to be done on them today, tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, and if they lose on Thursday, expect a big time going in from major networks. I'm talking Fox, ESPN, and it's already starting today because Cheryl Miller went on ESPN and she ain't whole.
A routine sideline moment in Indiana quickly spiraled into something that feels far bigger than a simple basketball sequence. Once Cheryl Miller weighed in, the entire situation shifted into overdrive, turning a brief exchange involving Stephanie White and Kelsey Mitchell into a clip fans are now dissecting frame by frame as if it contains a hidden meaning no one noticed in real time. The strange part is that every replay seems to tell a slightly different story, each angle adding confusion instead of clarity. And the louder the conversation gets, the less agreement there seems to be about what actually happened on the floor.
Just right into Indiana. After starting the season 4-2, the Fever have lost 2 in a row, and they're coming off a 16-point loss to the Fire yesterday. Cheryl, from what you're seeing, what's happening in Indianapolis?
Right now, it's frustration, and unfortunately, it's boiling over, and it's being seen. It's one thing to have it behind closed doors, but when it spills over, and when the coach has to basically say, "Hey, you know what, Caitlin? Enough is enough. This is too disruptive." In and out.
Before we move on, smash that like button and subscribe because you don't want to miss this one. Some moments in sports don't stay inside the game anymore. They spill out like a cracked stadium screen broadcasting straight to everyone's phones, turning what looks like basketball into something bigger. A live experiment where pressure, personality, and public interpretation all collide at once.
So Sue Bird and Cheryl Miller decided to talk about the entire Caitlin Clark situation where she lost to Stephanie White. And I don't think that it's anything wrong was said. I really don't think anything wrong was said. There was criticism for Caitlin Clark here, while not overly criticizing her, because I'm being real.
That's exactly the energy surrounding Indiana right now, where every possession, every sideline glance, and every quick exchange during timeouts doesn't just stay in the arena. It mutates the moment it hits social media, growing into something louder, heavier, and more dissected than what actually happened on the floor.
Unfold in front of our very eyes. You have the Kerry Champion comments, hit piece. You have the USA Today article, hit piece. You have Stephanie White and Brianne January drawing up a defense that makes Caitlin Clark looks like a 10 times worse defender than she actually is. Is she Tony Allen? No. Is she Rajon Rondo? No. Is she as bad as everybody is making it out to seem?
What used to be routine coaching frustration has turned into full-scale internet detective work, where every clip gets paused, zoomed, slowed down, and dissected frame by frame as fans try to reconstruct meaning out of split-second reactions that were never meant to carry this much weight. A simple glance toward the bench becomes a message. A timeout huddle turns into tension, and suddenly the game itself feels secondary to the story being built around it online, where interpretation often moves faster than context and perception starts to feel like reality.
I see why the Indiana Fever was so cold last night, because it got so heated on the sideline, they had to turn the AC on, man. They had to turn the AC on, man. It got heated, all right? It got heated on that sideline with Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark. And what I want to do is I want to show y'all the video of what happened, right? Then I want to show y'all some examples in the NBA of what I've seen. And then we're going to come back and we're going to kind of break down what Justine was doing, KK, and Kelsey Mitchell.
And right in the middle of that storm sits a sequence involving Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White, and Kelsey Mitchell that has been broken down from every possible angle, carrying a level of attention usually reserved for playoff elimination games rather than a regular season moment. What should have been nothing more than a standard sideline correction quickly turned into a national talking point. Because in today's environment, emotional reactions caught in high definition don't just stay in the game. They spread instantly and get amplified far beyond their original context. The conversation didn't remain within fan debates either. It reached mainstream sports coverage, where former players and analysts began offering their takes with the authority that comes from years inside locker rooms, and Cheryl Miller's perspective, in particular, shifted the discussion from asking whether something happened to questioning why these kinds of moments keep surfacing when pressure builds. And once that layer of interpretation was added, the internet did what it always does, taking a small spark and turning it into a wildfire of theories, assumptions, and character judgments delivered with absolute certainty. The irony is that basketball has always had moments like this, with coaches raising their voices, players responding, veterans stepping in, and then everyone moving on to the next possession. But in the modern version of the sport, nothing ever really gets a chance to move on.
Was going to make a video about this. Rhodes, is Stephanie White out? Is Stephanie White gone? Is Methany White gone, Rhodes? Have we been saved? Is Jan Jansen what? Coming to coach the Fever? No. Unfortunately, one of the GOATs got by a Twitter X.
Every reaction gets stored, replayed, and reinterpreted until it grows into something far bigger than the moment that created it. That's where Cheryl Miller's commentary added weight, without even trying to, because her breakdown didn't sound like speculation or noise. It sounded like someone reminding everyone that what they're reacting to isn't unusual, isn't rare, and isn't specific to one team. In high-level competition, frustration is not an anomaly. It's part of the structure, part of how pressure gets processed in real time. But the moment those internal exchanges are broadcast into the public space, they stop being just communication between players and coaches and start becoming content. And once it becomes content, it gets reshaped by expectation, emotion, and endless interpretation. Every sideline moment involving Caitlin Clark stops being just a basketball adjustment and turns into symbolism. Every gesture is decoded, every expression is analyzed, every word is reconstructed to fit a narrative. With the weight of expectations, constant media attention, and massive viewership, Indiana has essentially become the most magnified pressure environment in the league, where even silence can be read like a statement. And at the center of it all, that one sideline exchange has been replayed so many times it now exists in multiple versions, depending on who is watching. Some see frustration, some see coaching intensity, some see miscommunication, and others see the start of a bigger story about leadership and control, even though the reality is usually far less dramatic than what the internet is willing to believe.
Frustration, but it's also like not that crazy. This isn't the first time we've seen this. It doesn't have some deeper meaning to it. I've had moments like that with coaches. I think it speaks to relationships, player-coach relationships. Like shout out Brian Agler. You could say anything to that man and you could keep it moving. And then I had other coaches where maybe you couldn't, and you have to learn each other in that way.
But you knew
Steph
the
got
line.
mad.
You knew the line. When it becomes disruptive, and then when you and that's when even Kelsey Mitchell kind of chimed in and said, like, you need to go stand over here and let us just regain the calm in our huddle when it becomes.
But drama doesn't survive on moderation. It survives on escalation. And that's why Cheryl Miller's commentary resonated so strongly. Because when she described the moment as frustration boiling over in a competitive environment, it shifted the focus back from speculation to basketball reality, where teams argue, coaches correct, players respond, and then immediately move on to the next possession. Still, even that grounded perspective didn't stop the internet from dissecting every frame, especially when it comes to the unspoken communication hierarchy on the floor, where coaches set direction, guards organize flow, and veteran voices try to stabilize chaos, a structure that becomes even more fragile in a young, heavily scrutinized team built around a spotlight player under constant pressure. But none of that nuance survives highlight culture, where emotionally charged interpretations spread faster than context, turning a firm coach's instruction into a headline of players, reaction into a storyline, and a timeout into a courtroom drama where everyone is assigned blame or defense based on allegiance, while the actual basketball, the adjustments, the intent, and the next play mentality gets buried under endless commentary and repetition.
Saying that they want Cheryl Miller to be the coach of the Fever. And we got Sue Bird getting in on the action as well. Not only that, we got Amber Cox blocking Jason Whitlock on Twitter. She's on a blocking spree. Now, I said about a week or two ago, Amber needs to do what Kelly did at this point, and that's leave the internet. If you can't stand in the kitchen Get out. It's too hot for you. The oven might
The
burn.
tactical layer of this conversation is where things become more grounded, because opposing defenses have increasingly started to limit easy movement and force isolation-heavy possessions, especially against primary creators like Caitlin Clark, which compresses decision-making, shrinks passing lanes, and turns every trip down the floor into a test of patience rather than rhythm. In that kind of environment, frustration isn't just emotional but structural, felt by players in real time, noticed by coaches on the sideline, and later interpreted by analysts as some form of disconnect, even though it is often just the natural outcome of high-level defensive pressure doing exactly what it is designed to do. But the messy reality of those possessions is what the internet gravitates toward, because messiness creates storylines. Storylines create engagement, and engagement turns routine sideline reactions into trending conversations, while at the same time commentary from former players like Sue Bird has helped add a more grounded layer to the discussion by normalizing what fans often misread, since experienced voices understand that what looks like chaos from the outside is often just adjustment and problem-solving from within. And that gap between perception and reality is usually where most sports debates actually begin. Still, even with all that experience in the conversation, the public narrative continues to drift toward extremes, with one side seeing dysfunction and the other seeing passion.